I've been using the spelling, grammar, and style checker like you suggested.
Great. Has it helped?
Yeah, but I'm confused about one of the things that keeps getting flagged. Passive voice. The checker says to consider rewriting. But what the heck is passive voice and why should I change it?
Passive voice just means that the subject of the sentence is being acted upon instead of doing the action. Here's a quick example. The defendant was declared not guilty by the jury. Now, who performed the action in that sentence? Who declared the defendant not guilty?
The jury?
Right. And does the word jury come before or after the verb declared?
After, all the way at the end, actually.
Exactly. Defendant, the subject, is being acted upon instead of doing the action. That's why it's called passive. Here's another example. The cabin was destroyed by a tornado. Is the subject, cabin, acting or being acted upon?
The cabin was destroyed by a tornado, so it's being acted upon.
Right. Both sentences are in the passive voice because the subjects are, quote, passive. They're being acted upon.
Makes sense. So what's the opposite of passive voice? Active voice?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. Very good.
What's the difference?
Well, for the active voice, all you do is flip-flop the two parts of the sentence and revise. So instead of the passive voice, the defendant was declared not guilty by the jury, you make jury the subject or the doer of the action. Put in a simple tense and delete the word by. Then you get the active voice. The jury declared the defendant not guilty.
I think I got it.
Okay, let's check. Change our other example into the active voice. The cabin was destroyed by a tornado.
Well, like you said, flip-flop, cabin, and tornado. So it would be, let's see, a tornado was destroyed by the cabin. Wait, that's not right.
Remember to revise, simplify the verb, and be sure to delete by.
Right. Yeah. So it would be a tornado destroyed the cabin.
Perfect. You've changed a passive voice sentence into active voice by reversing the subject and revising to fit. I think you got it.
Good, I guess, but I still don't understand why the passive gets flagged by the style checker. I mean, I hear sentences like, the jury found the defendant not guilty, all the time. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. That's why the style checker only suggests you consider revising. The active voice and the passive voice are both parts of our language, and both play an important role in our writing.
Okay, so why the squiggly green lines in the warnings?
Because, like almost anything we do in writing, the passive voice can be used correctly or incorrectly.
How do I know if I'm doing it right or wrong?
It's a good question. A passive voice sentence emphasizes the receiver of the action instead of the doer. Sometimes that can be the wrong emphasis, depending upon the meaning of the sentence. Look at this example. Stop was shouted by the bank guard. Now, it's possible to imagine a scenario where that passive voice construction is appropriate. Let's say you're in a courtroom, the judge asks, "Please tell the court who shouted stop." And you might reply, "Stop was shouted by the bank guard, Your Honor." But in most other situations, you would use the active voice.
For sure. Normally you would say, the bank guard shouted, stop. You're describing quick actions.
Very good.
But sometimes when the passive voice was flagged in my papers, I was writing about ideas, not actions.
Do you remember an example?
Yeah, in my history paper about World War II, I wrote that Americans of Japanese descent were rounded up and put in camps, and it was flagged as a passive. Should I change it to active?
Let's see what the options are. Look first at this sentence. The parade was canceled due to rain. Who canceled the parade?
The officials, or whoever was in charge.
Right. But these officials who canceled the parade weren't even named in the sentence. They were only implied. Is that a problem?
No, I don't think it matters. You would just figure that whoever was in charge did it. There really wasn't a need to mention them.
Good. Now let's apply that same logic to your sentence. During World War II, Americans of Japanese descent were rounded up and put in internment camps. According to the sentence, these Japanese Americans were rounded up by whom?
It doesn't say. It's a passive voice sentence without the by.
Take a guess. Who do you think did it?
Soldiers, police, whoever was told to.
So, The emphasis is on the action done to the Japanese Americans. Should we change the sentence to the active voice to emphasize the soldiers and the police who did it?
No, I want the emphasis on what was done to these people. They were Americans too. I want to leave it passive.
You're exactly right. This is a perfect time to use the passive voice, and you shouldn't change it. Now, pretend you read this sentence in a newspaper. Last month, over 100 innocent Pakistani civilians were killed in the war against the Taliban. Who killed the innocent Pakistanis?
The sentence doesn't say. Actually, it avoids saying who was responsible. That doesn't seem right.
And that's a time when the passive voice should not be used, to avoid assigning responsibility.
I think I've got it. Sometimes the doer of the action is unimportant, so the passive voice can be appropriate, like in my sentence about the internment of Japanese Americans.
Exactly. But in most other cases, the active voice makes our writing less wordy and less confusing, because the focus stays on the doer of the action and never hides it from your readers or yourself.